The channel that I've created here is not one based around politics. It's one where I simply share my thoughts and opinions on a lot of different issues that we're having at the minute. However, when we talk about the economy, when we talk about a lot of these social and cultural issues that we have at the moment, it is undeniable that the government does have at least some of a role to play. I've heard a lot of people both in the comment section of my videos, but also there's, this big petition that the government should resign and we should have a general election. And to discuss this, and for me to give my thoughts and opinions, we need to first acknowledge why we have this government. And of course it's because at the last election, people felt like the last government messed things up to a point where they didn't want to vote for them, and they wanted a change. In the UK there are a lot of political parties, but really there's two main ones, which are of course Labour and the Conservatives. With the Conservatives being the last in charge and people seeing how the country's gone, people decided to vote for Labour. It's like the opposite option, right? It's two big options, you're going to likely go for one of the two. So a lot of people voted for this government, which is of course why we have them. And to acknowledge this topic and give my opinions on it, we must first acknowledge this point. And we must first acknowledge the role that most people play in politics and the understanding that they have of politics. I want to make one thing clear. I don't care which side of the sphere you're on. I don't care if you're liberal, conservative, right wing, left wing. Personally, I wouldn't attribute myself to any of those things, and I'll explain why. I consider myself to be a very open-minded person. And what I mean by that is I'm not going to say, oh, I'm left wing, or oh, I'm right wing, or I'm liberal, I'm conservative. You're going to be liberal on some issues, you're going to be conservative on others, right? Some issues you completely agree with, some you don't. And if you see things like that, you can make a lot more of a based opinion, a lot more of a perhaps sensible opinion, which is something that so many people basically don't want to do because they want to affiliate themselves with one or the other. This is very important for understanding my stance and also understanding most people's opinions around this matter, because most people don't think very much when it comes to who they vote for. Whether it matters or not is a different topic, and we can go on about that for ages, because you could make a very strong argument that the circumstances that we're seeing right now in the country are the consequences of things done in the 80s, things done in the 50s, before World War II even, maybe even going back to the British Empire, right? Depends what issues you're talking about and where you want to focus. But my point is this. Just before the election, I asked people, not people on the internet, people that I know, or people that I interacted with in the real world, so who are you going to vote for? And I know some people might see that as a divisive question or an inappropriate question. I don't think it is. I'm not really going to share too much of my opinions on stuff like that in a video like this, because I want to just look at the objective truth of it. Anyway, the point is this. Most of the people who I spoke to said that they're going to vote this way or that way. Mainly, of course, Labour. Which is fine. Vote for whoever you want. But then, irrespective of the political party, try this at some point when an election or something's coming around. So why are you voting for this party or that party? What do you like about their policies? Who's in the government? Who are they going to have? What's the record of these people? What experience do they have? And I said this a lot, right? So you're going to vote for X party or Y party or whatever. Name one policy of theirs that you agree with. Most people, this is astonishing to me. They don't know. Here's the funny thing about politics, right? And I don't like to look into the topic of politics here on YouTube because I want to make opinions-based videos on other subjects. But this is a thing about politics that you can't avoid. When we come to things like a government or whatever, these are the people who, to an extent, are going to be in charge of our country for a certain period of time. And that in itself, I would say, is a pretty big responsibility. Like, you wouldn't go out and buy a new car just off of a whim. You wouldn't just sign the papers on some random car just because it's there. You'd find out the specs and, I don't know, the fuel economy and the colour and all this sort of stuff. The same is true with everything that we invest in. And choosing who we want as our leaders, to an extent, should be thought out well by everyone who wishes to vote. I feel like, specifically in the UK, to be honest, when the elections come round, it's really just people go one or the other, usually the opposite of what's the current case. So I reckon if there was a general election, people would probably just go Conservative again. Now, obviously, in the last election, we saw different parties getting a lot more popularity, which is interesting. But this is the thing when it comes to politics, right? Look at the changes that governments can implement, positive and negative. And again, the current government has some great ideas, some terrible ideas. It's made some good moves, some bad moves. Same is basically going to be true for every government, but it's about whether a set government makes more good or bad moves. Irrespective of that, just keeping this completely factual as much as possible. If you voted for any government without knowing what any of their policies were, if you buy anything without knowing what it is, it's probably not the smartest move. And then people might say, well, governments can do U-turns or politicians can lie. And of course that is true. But this is why, again, you want to do as much due diligence as you can. From reading the manifestos, from looking into the backgrounds of these people who are going to be in charge. And perhaps one that's a little bit more subjective, but using a bit of common sense. So if they say that they're going to do this, this and this and this, where's the money going to come from? Or if this and this is going to be something, what is the consequence of that going to be? And, you know, again, I just think it doesn't matter which side of the political sphere or where on the spectrum you fall. There's a large, probably most people actually, don't think about these important and crucial things. And I personally find that slightly worrying. Actually, no, I find it massively worrying. Whether we are happy with a certain government or not, whether we're happy with certain policies or not, a lot of people voted for this government, the last government, and every other government that we've had in charge. That's how the system works, to a degree. Not fully, but to a degree. And if you vote for a specific thing, like I say, I think, in my humble opinion, it goes simply back to the example that I gave about purchasing something. You wouldn't make a big purchase like a house or a car without knowing what the ramifications, consequences and parameters of that purchase may be. And again, look at things that we're seeing at the minute. Tax rises and the problems that that's causing. And look at other political parties here in the UK and around the world, now and in the past. It's important to think these things through. And I know this is a bit of a vague video, but I think all I'm trying to say here, for young people, old people, whatever, a bit of sense, guys. Think about who it is that we're voting for. Whether you're happy with the current government or not, I'll let you make your mind on that. Whether it matters, I'll let you make your mind on that. But there's a large number of people who are complaining. But there are also a lot of people who are not happy, but vote for policies that make them, in reality, worse off. And I don't think enough people actually think it through.